First of all, thanks for coming down here and giving an opportunity for us to speak to here. Before I start on, I just want to share a couple of things. First of all, this summit has been an extraordinary experience, at least for me and the team. Yesterday has been fantastic delivery of speeches by prominent speakers across the industry, be it government, private sector. It's been really amazing. And I'm excited, I'm energized to see how we take this healthcare industry, especially the IT sector, forward. And as we start moving forward, how do we join hands and get this going? So what I want to touch before I get into a little bit of IT pieces, just a little bit of GE. Most of you would have heard what General Electric company is. GE is obviously composed of several businesses. We have healthcare to energy to infrastructure. As you know, we have our presence in energy and infrastructure, working with Delhi, with the central government, in terms of laying out a lot of foundations for a lot of rails and few other things. In healthcare itself, we have very, very good presence globally and in India. In fact, India is one of the first, one of the 5 regions where Government is actually looking at in terms of how the growth opportunities are going to be in India. So that means so much of funding and so much of money being poured into this healthcare structure. How do we integrate the systems? Now, within healthcare, we do have our equipment business, which is our MRs and CTs, top of the lines. We have our imaging business. We also have a life sciences business where we get into protein synthesis. We get into a lot of analysis of drugs and how we develop contrast agents in medical diagnostics business. And then we also have the information technology. Information technology itself is a compounded structure. We have been in this business for the last 10 years globally, and it's actually the reason why I say compounded is we have obviously built this in-house and also through several acquisitions. Right now we have laid the foundation, and I think I take the privilege to say that our number one key priority is interoperability and the way our systems work together, just not within GE systems, be it any of our other systems. I think it's been a fantastic open system. And if you need any APIs, if you need any SDKs to develop your own system, GE is more than willing to work with you and to open up any of the systems you want, unlike other enterprises. So what I want to start off is, let's look at, in terms of technologies for clinical excellence. This is one of the topics, and I started to think about when I started putting this pitch together, what could be the solutions of eHealth, right? And how can we solve technologies for clinical excellence and business efficiencies of hospitals? Now, at the end of this presentation, I really want to drive 2 messages. There's literally 2 messages which I want to drive. One, we're going to see in terms of the clinical efficacy, in terms of how do we build clinical knowledge. And to us, it's an integral part of any development. It's just impossible where, it's almost impossible where you have a telecom solutions or any other banking financial solutions and trying to develop systems where you probably have a hard time understanding how the systems work together. It's almost developing without understanding requirements in layman terms. So that's one point. The second thing is interoperability. Look, IT is all about data exchange. It's all about data. And if you don't have systems talking to each other, guess what? You're broken, right? And in India, at least, you can't come out with an excuse saying that, look, we don't have standards. I don't believe in, neither do you believe in that. We do need standards, but in spite of that, we need to figure out a way where we can come out with open standards, open up things so that systems can talk to each other and start working well in an integrated manner. So let's look at the challenges. And some of these slides, after we've gone through yesterday's session, it's like, we understand all of these right challenges. But I think just to recap before I get into a little bit of nitty-gritties, from our standpoint, we're looking at, the number one challenge right now is we go for a high-end equipment, right? We go for 64 slides or 1 video, whatever the slides or game is going on. And then we also go into high-tech technology. We have high-definition MRs coming out in GE, so as other competitors. We also have other equipment, surgical devices coming in. And the question really is, how do we get going on this 19th century information approach? You still go visit a physician, you still have paperwork. How do we start leveraging this documentation? Again, a lot of progress has been made. A lot of entrepreneurs have adopted, as we've seen in the past, as we've seen yesterday. But I think the digital revolutionary is yet to happen. Second is, obviously, the medical knowledge is doubling every 8 years. Right? So much of information getting for a 1 billion population of India. It's amazing that we are probably underestimating 8 years. Probably it's much more than that. And there's tons of digital data overload also happening, especially in the imaging sector, because a lot of more data is getting more and more digitized as we move forward. So data aggregation becomes very critical, right? One end, you're going to build HIS systems, you're going to put a lot of systems together. The other end, what are you going to do with the data? Where are you going to store it? How are you going to manage the data? How are you going to do analytics? So we got to start thinking right now. And of course, clinical practice variations, I can bet, I'm sure most of you would agree, you go to a physician today with a problem, you go to another physician, you're going to get probably a different medication, and both of them won't be agreeing with each other. So I think information, we talked about this yesterday, and I think this is at the core of solving these problems. And as we move on to the challenge 3, in a different perspective, a patient, right, all of us are at some point patients, we are always at the center of the game. And the best way is to think or imagine ourselves as patient and being at the center of this whole arena is you have different things coming up. Home health is picking up. A lot of our, competition and a lot of our partners, enterprises are getting into home health. We have specialists who are very, very good. In fact, triggering a lot of medical tourism for specialists, either cardiology or oncology and specific areas. We did have acute care and as well as chronic care, which we talked about, and ambulatory. So patient care occurs across continuum. There is providers for patients and systems across boundaries, right? Specialties, or if it's eHealth, and there are some examples which are being driven. And then also there's patient initiatives such as patient portals, which is being given by Google, Microsoft, and a lot of other companies. So I think the point here is with incomplete patient data, the errors and the lower quality of information, thereby how much of medical attention you can give to patients is decreasing over a period of time. And the question is, how can we reduce these errors? And how can we make sure that we develop these errors and take it forward? So this is an eye chart really. So I know people in the back may not be able to completely see this, but the point here is this is our ecosystem, and I've seen this ecosystem in different perspectives, even from the morning, different. But if you look at it really, you have at the top, you have the imaging application, care system application. We also call this revenue cycle management, which Divya talked about it in the morning, and as well as inpatient EHR, ambulatory EMR, and all the things this is still developing in the Indian market, right? At some point, it's good that we're going to have all of these information, but the point is, again, what are you going to do with so much of information? How are you going to process it? How are you going to move towards a mature model? I think that's something which we need to start talking about. And at the bottom, if you look at the number of standards being developed, one is in India, at least from the regulatory standpoint, the standards are still getting settled down. While if you look at the trends in standards, right, from HL7 or XPSA or XPSB, right through HL7 and few other, for every segment, every specialty care, there's been a new standards coming up. Where does the buck stop? Where does it end? And as we start taking India to the next generation, where does India need to adopt these standards, right? Literally, you can look at two things. Either you start going the way the Western worlds have done, doing an incremental way in terms of taking imaging and then moving up the data stream, or you start adopting some of these things all at once. So I think the message is very simple. I think the time is now, and time is really now. I mean, the fact that we spent 2 days and we have another day to go, in terms of how all of us are thinking, how do we approach and solve the problem? The problem statement was given very clearly. We have this complicated structure. On one end, we need to figure out how these insurance schemes, how do we make sure we drive accountability, helping the government drive some of these insurance schemes. On the other hand, how do entrepreneurs and private players make sure that they build a hospital efficiency system to track and make sure that accountability is given. And on the other end, you have the patient. How do we make sure for the patient you're giving, with reduced medical errors, the best of care you can provide? So I think two things which come apparent from, that, of course, so if I were to back up for a minute and say that distributed system is a fact of life, right? I mean, it's not going to happen tomorrow that all of us, what we heard last 2 days, that one person is going to say that, okay, this is the standards. These are the two players who are going to support these solutions, and this is how the government is going to start developing the protocols or develop. It's not going to happen, okay? I think the point is we've got to accept this and try to figure out how we're going to roll out some of these challenges. How do we work together? And I think that's the bottom line. So I think two things we have to keep in mind. I think two areas of expertise which will really help. One is interoperability. we just cannot ignore the fact of interoperability in India. We still have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of systems coming up, selling it to providers implementing. Some people get frustrated because the system doesn't work, it's not reliable, and the vendors vanish. Some people are really happy because they've learned over a period of years, right? You got to use their best practices and make sure that the systems work together. Now, when I say interoperability, it's just not between systems. It's not like taking an HR system and getting a billing system or a clinical information system to work with each other. These got to work with devices. It's not going to happen that you just have these two software devices to work. You've got to seamlessly work with devices, and I'm not saying it's just the GE, but also with other devices. And of course, connectivity is very important here. So I think two things. I'm going to keep saying this all through my presentation: interoperability and evidence-based medicine. I think that's a very, very important key thing, because we can all partner with n number of people, but if they don't have competencies in terms of understanding the clinical workflow or the hospital information workflow, we have failed, right? The requirements you might get, like dedicated doctors and physicians to keep giving the requirements, the IT company will only develop the best the requirements are. So I think it has to be hand in hand. I just want to spend a couple of minutes on healthy imagination. Now, healthy imagination is, imagination at work, as you know, is one of GE's, the way we are propagating in terms of the way we work. Now, healthy imagination is something which Jeff Hamlet, our CEO, launched, just like the way we launched ecosystems, right? Eco-imagination is something which we launched a few years back, but everything we do is green. And we actually have done a fantastic job in terms of what targets we put in 2005 developing green. At the same time, we're targeting healthy imagination. Now, what's healthy imagination? It's very, very relevant to emerging markets such as India, China, right? Only three things. It's very, very simple, which we've talked about it yesterday. Reducing costs, increasing access, and improve quality. Whatever we do, whatever we work, we do this way. Let me give you a live example of what we have done in a non-IT field, right? We talked about morbidity and mortality rates yesterday in terms of how India is doing. And recently what we did was we took the technology which was developed in the US, the exact same technology, but we re-engineered the complete baby warmer, which is typically used in a neonatal intensive care unit, and we remade it for Indian needs. See, that's the know-how. You try to understand what the customer, what the patient needs in India, take the technology developed in the US, thereby what you're trying to do is you're giving access, improving quality, or giving the same level of quality of care at reduced cost, right? And we actually donated a lot of these equipments in government of Tamil Nadu recently, but that's just one example which is, and then you have the ECG machines, and similarly on the IT background, we're doing a lot of such initiatives. So healthy imagination is something, a big thing going. The other thing as a part of healthy imagination which I want to drive is, the other part we want to drive on healthy imagination is, Jeff Hamlet gave $6 billion of stimulus package. So Obama gave a stimulus package, right? So GE internally gave $6 billion of stimulus package, out of which $2 billion was actually used for our EMR business. So what we're doing from now until 2012 is distributing these EMR packages to hospitals pretty much free of cost at this point of time, so that they can start adopting it, and over a period of 3 years when the stimulus actually comes into play, how we're going to leverage those things. So that's another example. I just want to quickly wrap up another few slides here. Again, global eHealth solution, this is something which we're driving right from physicians, hospitals. One other thing, terminology is health information exchange. It's almost like a telephone exchange where you can share information at the level 4 messaging system, right? It's at the level of lingo where different providers can understand, and finally add value-added services. And this is one slide where the way GE works, and I think what's important for us is the breadth of GE provides, both in terms of clinical value add and in terms of the know-how we bring in and how we bridge the interoperability piece. This is another slide from Gartner. I won't go into details, but I think this is a maturity model where we are really going from a collector from a discrete data, from a fax-based information exchange to a discrete, to finally to a seamless data integrated model. I think India is all along the curve. The question is, do we want to really get to a workforce support directly? Which is yes, because we definitely don't want to go through another 10 years of recycling this IT. This is one example on GE in Intermountain. Intermountain is another hospital. If you have heard, we have very good collaboration the way we have worked right from start. I think the point, I've underlined a couple of things here. One is the way we bring clinical application knowledge. The other important thing is we have been working with Intermountain from scratch. There are a few hospitals in India where we are working on such solutions. One is the Divanchan Hospital in Delhi. We also have a CMC Vellore where we are working with some of the solutions as we move forward. There's another digital hospital example. In the interest of time, I'm just going to a little bit zoom through this. As you can see how we have worked with the India Heart Hospital and how we have reduced the adverse drug effects, medical errors, and a few other things. And of course, highlighting some of the benefits for clinicians, which is pretty commonly known from a timely access, benefiting patients in terms of reduced stress and out of pocket. We have heard all of these things, so I'm going to be going again and again. We all understand the value of IT. And then, of course, one thing is benefits for payers, right? I mean, reduction in duplicate testing, all the TPAs which are there out in the market, the top 4 insurance agents, I think that's a big, big deal. So, one thing I want to emphasize is we do have a product called Centricity. Centricity is a brand name for IT products. Centricity means we are all at the center of all of these products. If you look on the right-hand side, these are the set of products which are available in terms of right from enterprise to patient, laboratory, perinatal, pharmacy, radiology. We are pretty prevalent in tax and risk, but we will be moving forward. And I think final thoughts, I just want to leave this audience with a couple of messages. I think to build clinical excellence and business efficiency, I think you really need clinical excellence and interoperability partner. When I say partner, you got to swim and sink with us. So I think let's join hands, let's combine hands, try to see how to solve the problem which government has given, which private entrepreneurs are. Right? Let's try to solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.